Hey everybody, welcome to Before College TV Live. We have another college conversation tonight with four students from the University of Washington. We have Martine, Michaela, Jair, and Jennifer. All of you are amazing and you are all Gear Up graduates. Is that correct, Martine?
Correct.
You were part of Gear Up, and Michaela, you were part of Gear Up.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and Jair, you as well.
Yeah, Europe
And
was
Jeff,
pretty
that's
dope.
because you all were. Hey, what is Gear Up? Is there someone here who can explain what that even is? Do you feel like, Michaela, do you feel like you could represent what that is and explain it?
Not fully, but I know they do target like underserved like communities such as like Toppenish and Wapato schools. And they like really prepare like these students who don't really have that many resources to get into like higher education. So like such as like they prepare these students for like several different things to get into like UW, for example.
Yeah, I thought you did a great job describing it. It's almost like
Thank you.
you practiced and didn't want to let me know. Like you
Thank
just
you.
knew. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
For me personally, Europe, like it introduced like when we were in middle school, I remember like in high school, it introduced a lot of like STEM programs and STEM focused things. And like so it gave us like a into which I guess for me, I'm studying civil engineering, it really like let me like, oh, this engineering stuff is cool and then the school trips definitely helped to get out of class.
What is STEM, Jair?
STEM, well, STEM is an acronym for is it science, technology, engineering, and math. When you study like anything relating those fields, so in my case, engineering, I mean medicine, like just all of those like very, I guess, math, calculation, concept heavy.
I believe you're into robotics. Is that right?
Yeah, I did robotics in middle school and high school.
Yeah. Do you still love robotics?
I mean, I haven't really done any robotics since then, but I mean, I still like robots. I just haven't really it's
Right.
not it's not something I guess in my major that's like they correlate too much.
So you don't have any robot friends or projects you're working on?
No, not currently
Okay.
or not.
Not currently. And Michaela, you did robotics as well with Jair at Toppenish, right?
Yeah, I did it middle school and like freshman year, and then I just dropped.
You dropped the robotics, so you're not into robots anymore.
Not necessarily that I'm not into robots anymore. Like I think robotics really helped me like figure out that I wanted to do STEM. It used to really want me to. It used to make me want to be like an engineer, but then I like totally did like a shift to, like medicine.
Yeah.
So I think it was like a good preparation for like my future.
So I want to get a sense of who you all are because I think it's really important for people who are watching to understand just where you came from in terms of what it was like to be you at Toppenish High School or at Mount Vernon High School. Because I know Jennifer, you are a graduate of Mount Vernon High School, and is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So Mount Vernon in Skagit Valley. So Jennifer, if we were to take you back to high school, if we were to meet high school Jennifer, how would you describe high school Jennifer so other people can identify with you?
I think I would be kind of shy, but when someone would talk to me, I would be open to talking and stuff like that. But I was usually involved in some clubs with like FFA, which is kind of different because just coming from a Latino family, you're not really like in FFA or anything like that. You're not really doing a lot of clubs or like other stuff. So it's kind of different. And my friends were not in FFA either. So it was a whole different group, a whole other vibe.
Like FFA isn't something that, culturally it tends to be something that you do.
When I went to FFA, it was just mainly people who are just Caucasian. You wouldn't see
Yeah.
any like of other races or anything. So I felt a little weird just being the only one who was Mexican and everyone else was just Caucasian there.
How do you do that then? Like, why'd you stay? Like, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, well, the reason I got into it is because I actually had a class that was called animal science. So I took that class, and the teacher that taught that was like, oh, like if you're interested in just like in this, then you should join FFA. And then I also did like I did a show and presenting my lamb and stuff, and then we like walked around with the lamb and sold the lamb and stuff like that. It was a very different experience because I've also been in FBLA, and that's very different to FFA because FFA you're like wearing your boots, you're like wearing your little vest and everything, and then and FBLA you're wearing your suits and your heels and your makeup and all prettied up and stuff.
So FBLA that's Future Business Leaders, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, for people who aren't familiar with FBLA, so you did that. So you did these things that are a little scary to do. I wonder if did your friends, did they think you were like weird, or did they judge you for doing that?
Um, they didn't judge me, but it was very nerve-wracking because my friends weren't interested in those clubs. But I was like, I was very interested in them. So I'm just like, I'm gonna just take a leap of faith and try this and see if it's for me. And that's what encouraged me. And then like my family encouraged me also. They're like, oh, like just try it or something like that.
So cool. All right, so Jair, take us to your high school, take us to Toppenish High School, and describe you, Jair, so we can get a sense of who you are and what you were like.
I could be loud at times, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, I wasn't really a troublemaker. I just kind of stayed out of trouble, did good in my classes, and I kind of just hung around if ever like a little. I had my friend group, but then I also would, depending on the class, who was around. I mean, I'd kind of just hang out with whoever wanted to hang out.
Yeah, so you just kind of flew under the radar, got your grades, you didn't like screw up too bad.
No,
Right.
once I got interested in robotics, I kind of focused on that more because it
Cool.
was just the competitions were fun.
So Martine, tell me a little bit about you. You're also a graduate of Toppenish High School. In the most stereotypical way, describe yourself.
I guess Mickey could confirm or deny this. I guess I was through most of high school. I was the goody two shoes, I guess. Um, that was also happened to be on the football team. I was all over the place: football, band, honor classes with Mickey. Yeah, even did golf. Mexican the golf. Yeah,
You did golf.
yeah.
Were you pretty good?
Now I am.
Oh, now you are.
Well, I was pretty good towards the end of my high school career. Yeah.
Nice. And so you were an athlete. Were you a star quarterback?
No, I was a star defender
Star
for my last
quarterback.
year. Yeah.
You didn't even say you were the
Yeah.
quarterback. I just made you the quarterback. I was just thinking of like but you were a star. You're popular.
I think you knew a lot of people. A lot of people knew who you were. Yeah, I'd say popular-ish.
Yeah, all right. So, intimidating. Were you dating a lot of people?
No, I did 1% in high school really, and that was turned out to be a mistake. But
Ah.
yeah,
Right. Well, I mean, that's high school. I was not an athlete. So I think when I think of someone being on the football team and, getting a lot of attention, I think like, they're dating. They're like, people like them, because I thought that's what it was like. But I guess it's not like that, right?
oh yeah, I was pretty conservative, reserved. I thought for myself.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, good. Well, we're getting to know you. Michaela, let's go to high school, Michaela. Give us a little bit of background on you.
I was the stereotypical straight A student, the person that like everyone went to for help. I was valedictorian of my class. I was basically in almost every club you can think of. I was like the president or the vice president. I did Miss Toppenish royalty, so I was a pageant girl. I was a cheerleader. Yeah, I did a lot of things in high school. I wasn't very social though. I think like being in all these clubs forced me to like talk to people. I think Martin can contest to this. Like I really only spoke to people in like the honors classes. Outside of that, it was kind of like, oh, don't talk to me. Like I'm really shy. Like I don't know who you are. But I think a lot of people knew who I was. I just didn't really know who they were.
Were you always like college minded? Was college really important to you?
Yeah, college was really important to me. I think for many here, like my parents are well, my dad is like an immigrant, so I would be like the first generation college student. So like they really pushed for me to go to college, especially since like I'm the oldest.
Yeah. So tell me about that. I want to understand, you're right now you're all at the University of Washington, which is so cool. I love your campus. It's a beautiful campus. Whenever I walk around, it's exciting, right? Especially the 1 week where the cherry blossoms bloom. Isn't that like, isn't that like
It's
once?
like right now.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Oh, cool. I have to look at your social media so you can like put that, because that's like the picture, which is the coolest thing. But it's just a beautiful campus. It's in a big city. It's really intimidating for those of you who are from Tompanish. It's not close to home, and you're living this life that I think a lot of people want to live or are intimidated by or don't know how to live, or don't even know how to get here. So I really want to understand how you were able to get here and how you were able to pay for it and how you were able to make friends and stay there. Because Martine, before we were talking, like, going to college is one thing, but staying in college, that's hard, right, man? Is that is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely believe it might be even harder to stay in once you than even getting in.
Why is that?
Um, I mean, my freshman year, I definitely struggled with classes. First quarter, 2.0 GPA. In high school, I had a 3.7. Um, that's what I got. And right away, first quarter, I got a 2.0 quarterly GPA. And so that was like rude awakening. I failed a class at the end of my freshman year. I had to do an appeal process to like stay in. Basically, kind of like, uh, I had some struggles, but like this won't happen again. Like hopefully I still get financial aid. But I mean, what I like to think now is failure is always the greatest teacher. And I think I'm even doing this momentum shifted my way, doing good now.
Like, you almost didn't make it. You were like 1 foot out the door, right?
Yeah, basically that was the first quarter. Yeah.
First quarter.
Yeah. And
Right.
so I think I was on academic probation after that first quarter. Um, it was no academic warning because I dropped under 2.5.
Wow. And the thing about you is now you're a campus leader. Like, you help mentor students and you support them, and you're kind of one of those people. Isn't that true?
Yeah, the Dare to Dream camp program.
Yeah. And it's because you struggled so much. So I want to learn more about that. I mean, that's awesome. I love the struggle, because once you get through that, you're unstoppable, right? Like like you faced that and you got back. When you were struggling and you had that 2.0 and it was looking pretty bad, was there someone who helped you to get it together?
Yes, definitely. Even though, so like I said, like you said earlier, I was in a fraternity. I joined a fraternity, and I dropped to that 2.0. But then I had brothers around me who were like 3.8 GPAs, and we have a strict like policy of like keeping your GPA up. And so like they were there, like kind of like I saw these guys going to the library. I'd go to the library with them, go study. Some of them have also like failed classes, kind of like when I failed my class.
Yeah.
One was like, hey, I did the same thing. Like this is what I did, and like I'm graduating in a couple months. He said, and so that helped me.
I think there's a lot of students who struggle in high school and in middle school, and they think they're stupid or they think they're not good enough, right? And they're like, "Oh, college isn't for me," or "UW isn't for me." What's your message to them?
Failure is gonna happen. Like so, just learn from it and just move on because it's gonna happen either earlier or later on. You just gotta accept it.
It's not a reflection of your value. And it's not a reflection of how smart you are. I think people really confuse that. I wish someone had told me that, because I felt stupid most of my life. I was never a 4.0 like Michaela. I was not the valedictorian. I was looking at my high school transcript, and it was like a 2.7, 2.8, and that was without gym. Like, I needed gym and art to get me like to the 2.9s, and I've done all right. And I went to college and got through it. But for anybody who's watching, like, you can be and do anything. And I think that's really important to recognize, like, no matter where you are. So the college piece, I want to know how you all got here. Uh, Jair, how were you able to identify the University of Washington? How were you able to apply? How were you able to pay for it? Like, tell me a little bit about your college process.
I guess going back to when I was a kid, like growing up, like I knew what college was. I mean, I thought I probably want to do that. like, you know, because I mean, you grow up and everyone tells you like you got to go to college. So I mean, but I didn't know. I didn't have really much thought into it up until I think like my eighth grade freshman year, like was when with Gear Up they started. Like that's when I got involved in robotics, and I started to figure out that I like engineering, right? And like I like the robotics and part, and then also through Gear Up I got to go to trips to different schools, like universities around the state, and like visit them and see the programs. Like they'd give us like tours and they'd give us like presentations about what type of classes they teach and stuff. And that's kind of where I decided like UW. My thought was I want to do engineering. UW's the best school for engineering in the state. I want to go there. And
Yeah.
that's my thought process from there to
How old were you when you kind of focused in on UW?
I think focus it that like for sure. I'd say I was like my junior year, like maybe sophomore year, like 16, 17. And like
Uh-huh.
once like I started like because before like I kind of thought oh like college was like a thought, but it wasn't, you know, like in my mind as in like, oh, where do I want to go, what I want to do. And like around then was like where I started to think, yeah, this is probably where I want to go, this the goal.
So
So
yeah. And then when it comes to paying for it, like UW's expensive, right?
yeah,
Like it's super expensive.
yeah. I mean, I guess relative to other things you could say it is, but like I
So
think personally for like my family and like money numbers wise, like when you hear the UW number, it's like the tuition and like to come here, it's expensive. Like, but
yeah, like what do you do when you hear, tens of thousands of dollars and I don't know if you have a lot of money in the bank. Do you have a lot of money in the bank? A lot of extra money for college? No. Right. Like so when you decide you want to go to UW, then you looked at the finances. Explain to me how you were able to make it work.
I mean, finance wise, UW had like this thing called the Husky Promise, which was at the so that kind of helped me a lot. Like they basically provided me a lot of grants, state grants. I mean, it helped being having an EFC of zero when I applied when I applied for financial aid and filled out all the information. Since my family's income isn't enough to cover UW, it says that my family shouldn't have to pay anything. And then I've been lucky at least through UW, like the financial aid office, like I've really gotten like a lot of grants and I haven't had to take out any loans at all. Like
That's
I
awesome.
just
So
but really it was just I applied at UW and I just sort of trusted that like that it'll work out, and it sort of has.
yeah. So explain that. An EFC, that's your expected family contribution,
Yeah.
correct? So when you have an EFC of zero, right, that means that they look at your family's income and they say, we don't expect you to pay anything. And then you look at how much it costs. And when you put that together, some students might think, like, I can't afford this. My family can't pay anything. But then you said that you got all these grants and there was a Husky Promise. Can you just explain how much free money you've gotten? Because I really want students to understand just how accessible it can be if you don't have a family that can pay.
Yeah, I mean, free money. I mean, I'm in my fourth year towards the end of it. Can't remember what they say, like UW's annual, like per quarter or per year prices, but I think it's like I mean, when I remember like 15 tuition thousand. So, I mean, I've had what, roughly $45,000 because I haven't had to pay anything out of pocket. That's what I had a couple scholarships that I got in high school, but I really didn't apply to any, which I mean, I feel that's kind of one a regret. I mean, because it's free money, you could have got more. I was just lazy with filling out applications personally. But yeah, so I mean, but I've been lucky through like the grants and everything. Like I basically had everything covered. I haven't had to pay anything out of pocket, like myself or with my family. Haven't had to take any loans out either.
That's awesome. And then when it comes to room and board, and that's a place to live and paying for your food and your books and that, did you get money for that as well?
Yeah, they gave you, well, the first couple of years I lived here, I lived in the dorm. So through financial aid, they paid the dorms and I had that covered and I just stayed. you get a food card where you could get money, or you have money for food, and that, at least that's how I did like my first couple of years. And then when I moved off of campus, like because of my the financial aid I received, they give you like a refund every quarter of like a certain amount to pay for your rent and everything. It's
So
just
they'll
up to
actually give you
your
money
yeah.
that you can then use to spend in other places. And I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like what you're talking about sounds like a dream. Like it sounds like, is this true? And how can this even happen? Um, when it comes to your grades and just, how much of an achiever were you? I mean, were you valedictorian? Are you like, how smart do you need to be? What kind of grades do you need?
I mean,
Or do grades even matter? Can you be like a mediocre student and still get a ton of dough?
me in high school, I was like, I wasn't valedictorian, but I got to speak in graduation. As far as I know, we just had like they had like our top 5 students speak,
Yeah.
so they didn't have. I wasn't the number one student, but yeah, so I was amongst the top. I had like a 3.98 GPA. I got
Nice.
like I only got 2 A minuses in high school. Like
Right.
I had a really good grade, but I was kind of in high school. I was a student, at least I feel, where I kind of just coasted. Personally, it was
Wow.
sort of easy, but the moment I got here in my first quarter here, it was not bad. It's
You got
been
your
real hard.
butt kicked. Oh, good. Okay. Well, we're gonna hear about you getting your butt
But,
kicked in a little bit. But for other students, and I know that you also have friends. All of you have friends who have gone to other places. Um, you don't have to be a 3.9 student to get tens of thousands of dollars, right, Michaela?
No, you don't.
Right. I think that's really important for everyone to understand. And Jair, I really appreciate you sharing. Just it seemed like, it was relatively easy for you to get here, which is wild, right? I mean, is that true? Am I making that up?
yeah, I feel to get to UW it was relatively easy. It was just once I got here where it went. Well, now what?
Right. So that's interesting. But it was Gear Up that helped you to understand where you wanted to go through the field trips, through helping you through the FAFSA. Uh,
They helped me. They looked over my was a personal statement when I before I submitted. Like they helped me with the application process too.
yeah. And who was helping you? Who was the Gear Up person who was in
Uh,
your corner?
for my personal state, I had as a Caesar and was Miss Ochoa. Can't remember
Yeah.
her. Hernandez and then Ochoa. And then there was another. I can't remember if Stacy was part of Gear Up, but I think she was. But it was because she was part of like a high school a counselor, but I think she was part of like the alternative school or a high school. But she helped us. So like she looked over my personal statement, helped me make it real good. Like honestly, when I first brought it to her to when I left, I was like, yeah, this is so much nicer.
That's awesome. And without Gear Up, do you think you would have made it here?
Without Gear Up, like maybe, but it was nice to have the guidance of like you need to do this, like or they're gonna ask for this to because I didn't know anyone, I didn't know anyone who'd gone to college personally, so I didn't have like anyone to help me.
You knew no one.
Yeah, I'm the old. I'm really like from my family wise, I'm kind of like the oldest. My parents are kind of older from their family too, and I'm the oldest from theirs. So I'm kind of like on my dad's side, I'm like the oldest grandchild. I'm like the first generation of like going to college of everyone. So yeah, I never
Wow.
had within my family like anyone to like ask or
Yeah.
like,
That's a hard thing to do.
guidance.
I mean, we're going to learn what happened once you got there. But that's remarkable. It's exciting. I love hearing that story. I just think people don't understand that. Like students don't get it. And God, I just hope somebody listens and is like, I could do this, right? Like I could do this because you're doing it, and it's amazing. I don't know if you know how amazing you are, but like you make it look easy. But dude, you're like a rock star. So Jennifer, you're from Mount Vernon, so you don't know any of these people real well, do you?
No,
Have you ever met any of these people?
no, I've never met him.
Oh, this is great. So now you have. So Michaela, Jair, Martine, this is Jennifer. Um, you'll see her on campus, right? You're a transfer student.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your major?
I'm business administration.
Nice. Okay. So if any of you know any business administration people, or if there's a tough class, Jennifer, what's your hardest class?
Well, I'm not very good with mathematics, so anything that involves math.
You struggle. Okay, good. How are you, Martine, with math?
I didn't do so good in calculus in
Okay, so
college.
so don't ask him for help. How about you, Jair?
I mean, I'm an engineer, so I'm
Right.
supposed to be good at it, but
You
I,
do it
I,
in your sleep.
I wouldn't say, at least relative to people in my classes who I don't feel I'm good at math, not this engineering math.
Right. And then Michaela, how are you with math?
I used to be really good until Calc 2 at UW because then
Yeah.
I was with all the engineering students. Yeah. So yeah.
Engineering, right. Engineering is like a whole other level of like, right.
Yeah.
It's like a different language of mathematics. So, but I feel like Jennifer, you have some help here. So if you need some help, Jair, will you help?
I mean, I could try. I feel like business is statistics. Engineers don't do statistics.
Really? Okay, so you're intimidated. Wow, that's
I've
fascinating.
never done any like statistics classes or anything. I've done like algebra, like basically heavy algebra, heavy calculus stuff, like concepts.
Yeah,
Like I've learned.
interesting. Okay. Well, I'm trying to help you, Jennifer, to find some help. But maybe you'll just grab some coffee and go for a walk, right? And they can introduce you to some of their business friends through their fraternities and through their other groups. They can connect you with a lot of people because you need connections, right? Like you need to find your people, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You do. Like that's the thing, the Gear Up connection, and just you're a first gen student, right?
Yes, that's correct also.
Yeah, so like I feel like you're all in it together, It's like everyone can support each other. So these guys and Michaela, they know some people, so I wouldn't be afraid to ask them because they'll hook you up with some nice people. Like hook you up meaning not like dating, but I mean like right, they'll connect you with people, of course. Right. Or dating too. I don't know. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll introduce you. Who knows? You'll find a tutor and fall in love. How about that? You open for that?
I'm open. I'm open for anything.
Wow, this is great. Wow, this is the beginning. We're gonna look back at this conversation and you're gonna be like, hey Harlan, do you remember that? Well, let me tell you what happened after that. I'm all for that. That's great. Okay, so Jennifer, Mount Vernon High School, over in Mount Vernon over in Yakima Valley, right? Or no, you're in Mount Vernon, you're in Skagit. Top and I know my Washington. I know. I just got a little too relaxed. Okay. So tell me, so you're first gen student, how many siblings do you have?
I have an older sibling,
Okay.
and he actually did go to UW, but he didn't graduate.
Mm,
So it was kind of like the reason he didn't graduate was because of like financial aid and stuff. And he came to like the limit of financial aid, so he couldn't finish.
mm.
So I kind of had a little help when it came to applying, but we were still like in the ground of like um things are changing, and so I still didn't know a lot. And also because I was in Running Start, like I didn't go that much to the high school after, and so I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. And my grade, comparing me to everyone else here, my grades weren't that great. My grades were probably for high school when I graduated was about like a 2.7
Mm.
or something like that. So that's like mainly the reason that I decided to just like stay in Skagit, because I did apply to UW, but I didn't get in. But I was like, oh, I want to get in. And so I just like decided to get my transfer degree and transfer.
So that's such a great story. Okay. Because I can relate to being a 2.7 student, right? So you applied and you got rejected,
Yeah.
which was that how did that feel?
Well, that felt heartbreaking because I have many close friends that are actually here for UW, and they were like, "Oh, I got accepted, this that," and I was like, "Wow, like I didn't get accepted." I was like, "Am I really that dumb? Why didn't I get accepted?" But then after like I was like, my parents were trying to motivate me, be like, "Hey, like you can do it, like keep on trying," and it happened.
Yeah. So when you got rejected, you decided to go to Skagit. but why didn't you decide to go somewhere else?
Um,
Explain to me that path.
well, the reason I did get accepted to Central, but I decided not to go because I wasn't sure like if we could pay for it, and it was just mainly because of the money. And it was easier since we live a little bit closer to the community college. Like I was able to walk there instead of like driving there, or I wouldn't need to get like an apartment to live there and stuff like that. So it's mainly because of the money.
Explain to us the money part.
No one in my family has ever gone to a community college, so I was like just like scrambling everywhere trying to find my resources and being like, oh, like who do I talk to and things like that.
And do you think going to community college is a good idea? Was it a good fit for you?
I believe it was because also like I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it also like gave me when I graduated, I was like, oh, I want to be an art student. That was my main goal. I was like, I want to be an art student and that's what I want to transfer with. And so when I got to UW, I was like, wait, no, I don't want to be an art student. I want to be a business student. I want to open up my own business in the future. I want to make a name for myself.
What kind of business?
Well, actually, I opened my own business this year, and it's a bakery business. And so baking has been a passion of mine since high school. Like I've always been baking. I've been baking cupcakes. I've been baking other things like French pastries, but I've been concentrating on making like traditional Mexican bread, especially from the state of Oaxaca, since my parents are from the state of Oaxaca. And so like I really enjoy the process of making the breads. And even though I sometimes don't get enough sleep, I probably get like 1 hour or 2 hours of sleep when I'm baking the bread. But I love the process. I love that I'm able to give a good product to my customer and they're like, oh, like this bread's so good. It makes me remember like my childhood, or it makes me remember Mexico or things like that. Like it gives me joy just hearing comments like that from my customers.
It gives me joy hearing you talk about it. It's like, right? Can you feel the joy? It's like, so you can, it's just all I need to do is smell the bread to go along with the joy. And then how do you sell this? Like who buys it?
Well, I do it by like Facebook Marketplace and then also my family in the beginning, but now that I got my license and stuff, I'm like starting to like possibly I'm gonna ship it other places and things like that, but I'm still working that out and I like barely bought my domain for my website and things like that. So I'm slowly getting into
What is
it.
the, would you mind sharing the name of the business?
Yeah, I named it Gamo, which is sounds kind of weird, but it's the GA stands for my maternal grandmother,
Uh-huh.
which is Gabriela, that's her name, and then my paternal grandmother, which is her last name, which is Morales.
Oh, okay. That's so cool. So it's how do you spell it?
MO.
Gamo. So
Yes.
if we search Gamo and then we just look for breads, or what do we look for?
It's actually my website. It's still not done, but it's Gamowa. So it's GAMO
Okay.
WA for Washington.
This is exciting. Okay, .com or dot like WA.
.com.
So it's .com. Okay. So we can check that out because this is exciting. So if you need help with any of your business accounting, you can also provide snacks, right?
Yes.
Right. Because I think that this is good. I'm putting this out there. Like this is real. Okay. You're gonna find some of these business students. Martine, do you know any business students?
Actually, I do know two that graduated from Foster School of Business.
There we go. So you get a little bit of help there already. So gosh, you are all so interesting. I'm like I usually I'll just talk a little bit to each person, but it's like I'm falling into this rabbit hole with each of you because you're just like so fascinating. I want to ask you one more question about going to a community college, then going to the University of Washington, because I think there's a lot of students who would love to go to the University of Washington, but again, it's kind of scary. It's expensive. It might be far away. How difficult is it to transfer as a community college student to the University of Washington?
Well, I think it depends. Like, if you get your associates, it's easier to transfer into a four-year university. But if you just have a couple of classes and you want to transfer, it's a
Yeah.
little bit harder. You need better grades when you don't have your associates and you're transferring.
So
But
you
since,
have your associates.
yeah, I have my associates.
And what was your GPA when you
Um,
graduated?
it it wasn't that high also because
Tell us.
they did my GPA like for Running Start also.
Yeah.
So but I guess it was like a 2.9 or 2.8.
So you had your 2.9 GPA from Skagit to get your associate degree, and then you were able to transfer into the University of Washington.
Yes, that's true.
Isn't that awesome? Like that is so cool. Like it's so cool. And it's like I don't think grades are a reflection of our self-worth or our possibilities in life. You know, it's like I don't know if you've heard this research, but um it's students who end up being like C students who end up being amazing entrepreneurs and leaders because they've been beat up a little bit and have had to work through some challenges. So that practice really helps them. So for anybody who's like, oh man, like I'm struggling, like, okay, good. This is good because there's so many ways to get there. The money, and then the money, Jennifer, how do you find the money this year?
Well, by financial aid. I just applied for financial aid. Like you need to apply before January 15th. You need
Yeah.
to submit your FAFSA to the school you want to go into. And that's how you do it. They send you an email and everything saying they processed it. And if
Do you have a lot of loans or do you get a lot of free money?
well, last year was actually this year was the first year that I did get a small loan because my dad got laid off and my mom stopped working also, so I kind of was forced to, but I didn't need to get a lot because like I started selling a little bit of bread and stuff and that's also helping me.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, one other thing you can do, and this is for anybody, you can bring your latest financial information to the financial aid office and you can explain to them what happened. And there may actually be emergency funds available. There could be grants, there could be money as part of the next stimulus package. So, one thing to do is I don't know if you've done this, have you gone to them and told them what's going on?
No, but I did get help.
Okay.
I did get some help from the financial aid office.
Okay. Martine, thanks for being so patient, man. What do you think of all this?
I think this is wild listening to like everybody else's perspective, like Jennifer's journey to UW.
One other question for you, Jennifer, with Gear Up, how did Gear Up help you to prepare and plan and navigate the change to college?
Well, Europe did pay for like the SAT or ACT, so that really helped. And there was also like just like more information about universities and stuff like that. And there were also I remember going to a dinner that was also held by Europe and stuff like that. Like they were very helpful. I think without them, like I wouldn't be here. So they were really impactful.
Did you recognize when you were doing some of the things that it was Gear Up that was helping you, or was it like just, magic and you didn't realize it was Gear Up?
At times I did realize it, but at times I was like, wait, what? This is Europe?
Yeah, I think that's sometimes a lot of people don't get it when it comes to the field trips and the help and the financial aid workshops and the support and the personal statement and all that and all those additional pieces that those people help and they really want to help you, and asking for help I know can be a hard thing. Michaela, I'm really curious to hear about your journey. I know that you were really focused, like you're an achiever, you get what you want, and that's a wonderful thing. Um, and I think the crown jewel is probably going to the University of Washington, right?
My family always spoke about UW, because like my family was like, they idolized like the UW's football team. So like they're always like, you're gonna go to UW, you're gonna be the first one, stuff like that. But like I think my journey at UW hasn't been easy because even though I was like straight like A student in high school, when I got to UW, it was kind of like a kick to the face, like, oh, you're not the best. Imposter syndrome like really like hit me hard freshman year, especially. the classes can be brutal, especially like STEM lead up classes. And all I was taking was like STEM. I was taking like 3 or 4 STEM classes a quarter, which isn't the best thing to do, but I was just trying to get them all out.
So explain to me, and I want to do a round where we really get to talk about how you made the transition and just how hard it was, and how other people can start thinking ahead. Because I think that a lot of the things you've all dealt with are things that are so normal, but if someone had told you, it might have been a little bit easier to have, maybe taken 2 of those STEM classes, or know that you could withdraw from a class, or realize that you don't have to be the best to be the best, and you can just chill out, right? Like, I mean, there's just so many pieces. But Michaela, just real quickly, going from high school to college, so you knew that UW was going to be a place to go. When it comes to applying and getting in and being able to pay for it, explain to me that part of your journey.
So I think like all of us here, I applied for like the FAFSA, submitted it, did the whole like waiting process. I had also applied for the Washington State Opportunity Scholarship. So anyone who lives in Washington State should apply for that because it's like a really good scholarship and it brings in like a lot of money. So I applied for that and I received it. But then like when I got my financial aid package from UW, I was like, hold up, like I can't, because my EFC wasn't zero. I think it was like 3,000 or something like that.
Mhm.
And I was like, hold up, why is it saying like I have to pay like $10,000, to go to school? So like I was very like worried, like I can't pay for this. My parents don't have like the funds to pay for this. I probably won't go to UW. And then if it wasn't for the help of I forgot the advisor's name, but she was a trio advisor. She worked very closely with GEAR. She advocated for me to be the Costco Diversity Scholar, like one of them from my school. And then, so I was the late Costco Diversity Scholar awardee. So like, I think my financial aid updated like 2 weeks later than everybody else's, and it said like I got the Costco Diversity Scholarship, which is like $40,000, and I was like in tears, like with my mom. I was like, I can finally go to UW, like I don't have to not go and take out loans. So like right now, sorry, I don't take out like any loans at all. I get a refund check now that I'm not in dorms. But yeah, if it wasn't for like the Costco scholarship or WSOS, I probably wouldn't have gone.
Wow, that's remarkable. So the trio piece. So explain to me and everyone else the what trio is and how you were even introduced to trio, because it clearly changed your life.
So Trio is fairly similar as Gear Up, except they have like an actual office at UW, and they work with a lot of undergraduate students.
Yeah.
But I know there was an advisor there, and I think she just like started talking to me because of like Europe knew who I was. And they're like, here, let me introduce you to this student. And like I had also qualified for like their qualifications. And like this advisor, she was like super amazing. She would always bring me in, like talk to me, like, what do you want to do? Like, just kind of like figuring out what I want to do and like just getting to know me better.
This
But
is
then
while you were in high school?
yeah, this was while I was in high school. This was senior year.
Okay.
Because she wasn't there prior to senior year.
Right.
When I was a senior, she was like getting to know me. Was I think she was a part of like the faculty who like chose the Costco scholars for like each different school, and like she was telling me, she's like, yeah, I really had to advocate for you because to be like a Costco diversity scholar, you have to fit in like this. I think it's like a financial like bracket,
Right.
and then like you also have to like do like really good performance wise on like other things. And I think mine, like my family income, like barely like was over like the bracket. And like the advisor, she's like, hold up, no, like she deserves this, And so like that's how I got it because she had advocated for me.
Yeah, that's amazing, because it's also amazing because I mean, you're valedictorian and you worked so hard, but you were facing this really difficult dilemma of how are you going to pay for this?
Yeah, you don't apply to the scholarship directly. It's like a committee who chooses you. So like
Gotcha.
if you're in the pool of like students who are going to UW, then they like narrow you down by like different criteria and then they select you.
Felt like everyone from Top Finish got one but me.
I think there was
Oh,
only three per like school.
Martine's like, he didn't get it either.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Feel
Well, I
you.
mean, he didn't get, so you got good company, right? I've heard so many different ways that people are able to pay for it. And Michaela, that that piece of knowing someone, and I think Gear Up's such a great organization, and a similar organization when you get to UW or any school, there's Trio. And Trio is a very similar program. I don't know if Jennifer, if you're, are you familiar with Trio, Jennifer?
No.
Oh, so Jennifer, yes. So like, I don't know exactly what all the qualifications, and Michaela, you can tell me, do you know, like, if I know for Trio, if you're a first generation student,
Yeah,
uh,
I think it's first gen.
low
Like
income, I don't want to
yeah, there's a
misspeak,
lot of requirements. I mean, if you Google it, I'm sure like it'll show all the requirements.
but if you're part of Gear Up, chances are you can be part of Trio. But what's really cool about Trio is not only can you get help, because you can get, financial assistance. So like if any of you and anyone watching this, if you like are in a place where you can't afford something or you have a bill and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Well, you turn to these people. You turn to the people in these offices, especially those that have grant-based programs. They can sometimes find money. But also Trio gives you community, it gives you mentors, and it's a wonderful way to find connection. Hey, Martine, help me out with Jennifer when it comes to finding places. And Michaela, you can do this as well. But I know Martine is part of Dream, Dare to Dream. So for Jennifer, who's new to the community, first gen student, right? What are some places where she can find some help in addition to Trio, connection and community? Do you have any ideas?
Oh, there's a study center that's specific for like trio students and like first generation students, where only if you're like a first generation student, you're allowed to go in there. I use that place a lot. I think it's called the IC. You two should know it. And basically, I'd go in there and like you just basically find people of like your same, I guess, background, and like are studying for the same classes, and you could just buddy up there. You sit at the same table that you're studying. You're taking the same class apparently, and you're both from like the same program because only people from like Trio or uh, I was part of CAP myself are allowed in like that building.
Martine, were you part of Trio?
I think I am now, but my first year I was part of something called it's called OMED, and I applied for a camp. So I don't know if you've heard what camp is at UW or other schools.
Explain camp, because I know what camp is, but I would love for you to explain it.
So I forgot what the abbreviation is, and that's I feel bad because I've been so much involved with it. But basically, if your parents were a migrant family, like they worked in like agriculture, like farm work, and you're a first generation student, is something you're able to apply to. And if you fit the criteria, you're allowed in. And in my first year, it was like a $1,200 stipend they gave us, $400 additional dollars every quarter. And it was one like, class, it was basically like a seminar. And you meet all the other people who are also like first generation students, like 55 other students. And we're all like the same background, all Hispanic, Spanish speaking. And so like we were able to like connect so easily. Community within like 2 weeks was already built, people same background. And then it's a class specific. They're like they specifically guide you. They're like your first year at UW, trying to help you out, trying to make sure you once you're in, make sure you stay. They also helped me stay after struggling my first year. And then they offer like a specific like advisor as well that you could go to, and like it helps. Like it's a lot more focus on you guys. You feel like you're a lot more welcome. I'd go to him all the time, and he'd always be like, how you doing? Like, a friendship was built with my advisor basically through camp.
Michaela, can you add to that of any places where Jennifer or someone else who's looking at like UW can find instant connection and community?
Yeah, so like Martine, I went to the instructional center, which is the IC. That's ran through OMED, which is Office of Minority Affairs and Diversity. and they're in charge of like all kinds of different programs, like EOP programs, TRIO programs, camp, um, just various programs that are targeted for like underserved like communities and minorities, first gen students, low income students. So like students who go to the IC all fall under like OMAD programs. There's also the ECC, which is the Ethnic Cultural Center. Basically, there's a cultural room for like not every culture, but most, or not most, some cultures. But it's like a fun place to like see other students who are like not the majority. Because being at like UW, which is like primarily white students, it's kind of intimidating. And so like you can go to the ECC and like find like community, because like a lot of these people, even if they're not like the same race or ethnicity as you, they have like experienced a lot of like the same like hardships you have, just being like a first generation student or like low income. There's also like a lot of Latina sororities. I'm surprised Martin didn't say that since he's in a frat, but they have like a
Yeah.
lot of those on campus if you're like interested. I personally wouldn't be in one just because I do a lot of other things on the side, and like I don't personally fit in with like most Mexican students on campus since I'm like mixed ethnicities. But that's like a different like conversation. But like I know like the Latina sororities have like a lot of community, and I know they have like a lot of fun because I have friends who are in them. Um, there's a lot of clubs. There's a lot of like let's see, what is it? There's a lot of cultural clubs, which are like really fun if you're like, especially like at UW, when it's like you don't really see people who look like you. So when you're in those clubs, it like makes community smaller, and like it's people you can bond with who had like similar like cultural experiences as you.
Jennifer, were you familiar with those?
No.
Oh, this is awesome. Does this excite you?
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Oh, this is good. Yeah, Martine, you had more to add, it looks like.
Yeah, yeah. To jump on what Mickey said, yeah, she's right. I don't know why it didn't come to mind. So Jair is also uh, part of the same like branch of like these multicultural fraternities and sororities. And yeah, there's several like different like Latin-based sororities where it's not just like exclusively for like Latin people, but yeah, and that's like a good support system that you're able to like join in, and they all want the same goal as graduate, but while also having like a social aspect in UW. Good experience.
Jair, do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I feel like they kind of named all the ones I
I
could
know,
think
man. They did it all. I was like, well, how could you add anything else?
of. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're just programs. I mean, I know a lot of sorority girls or who are part of the sorority who is it called Unidas. Unidas Haremos. I feel like that's for, I think it's for Latinas, right? Or
Yeah.
Latino background, like, and they're not specific to like any major or anything, so you could probably connect with maybe people doing foster, because I know it's pretty big. I mean, like the group there, and that's like other one in specific that I could name that might similar backgrounds that might have connections.
So Jennifer, like when it comes to you getting on UW's campus and transitioning, you haven't really heard this, it sounds like.
Yeah, I haven't really heard about it. It's because most of my friends were already attending
Yeah.
UW, so I'm really one of the only ones that decided to transfer, so I really didn't know about the resources and stuff.
Yeah. But I think even being a transfer student, you don't know, but I think that when a lot of students land on campus, like I don't think they know about this stuff. And I think in high school, like I don't know, like Michaela, did you know about all of this in high school?
No.
Right. And I think that that's the thing that's so exciting is that there's this community, and you said that the campus is predominantly Caucasian, right? So when you're taking your tour, when you're on your Gear Up tour and you're walking around campus, do you see a lot of people who look like you just while walking around? No.
No. Like I would even say like the Latin community or like Hispanic community is like extremely small at UW. Like you can tell that like you're not the majority, and it's very prominent, especially in like 1,000 lecture like classes, like with 1,000 students, like you can look around and like see the faces, and they're like predominantly like Caucasian.
Martine, you've offered so much, but I don't think we know how you got to the University of Washington, man. Like, I don't think we know, like, how did you get here? What was your journey from high school? How did you land at the University of Washington?
So I knew college was always an option because my oldest sister, she graduated high school in 2012. I was class of 2018, and she went right into Heritage University. And so I knew like she got in, and I was like, okay, so I know college is an option. Like that's what I want to do. And then my sophomore year, my other sister got into UW, and so I was like, oh, like I'm the third child. Afterwards, I gotta keep it up. But I don't want to go to the same college. I wanted to get away from family. I was having a lot of like arguments with like my mom. Now I was still pretty young, like still immature. And so I applied to WSU. They had rolling admissions, and like if you had a 3.3, you were automatically accepted. I had a 3.6 at the time. I was like, I'm already in WSU. I ended up playing the UW, but I didn't really want to go to UW. And it wasn't until I came back from a trip from Mexico, landed in Seattle at night. I was driving back home. I saw the city at night, and I was like, you know what? I want to come to school in Seattle. Like, and so then as soon as I got the acceptance letter from UW, I was like, I'm all for it. I don't even care like if I had like the money. I was like, I just know I'm going there. And then it came to the FAFSA. I had a EFC of 6,000 my first year. But luckily for me, I ended up going apartment with my sister my first year. And so it was a lot cheaper for me. So I didn't have to like spend money on the dorms. It was a lot cheaper. And so I guess just having my older siblings to like guide me into college was nice.
How were you able to pay $6,000 in EFC? For those who aren't familiar, an expected family contribution of $6,000 means that every year you've got to pay $6,000. You multiply that by 4, that's $24,000 if you graduate in 4 years, which is a good chunk of money. So were you able to work? Were you able to get some scholarships? Did you have to take out some small loans? How were you able to make this work, Martine?
So my freshman year, like I said, I had the $1,200 stipend from camp. I ended up going apartment, which is a lot cheaper from being in dorms. And then I also got the WSOS scholarship, even though I wasn't a STEM major, I wanted to do STEM. Anybody could apply to it. And so I took advantage of that. I think it was $2,500 per year. And so then I think it's until your third year, you have to declare like what your major is, and then they remove the scholarship. But I just said like, oh, like I'm still interested, in STEM. And so I got the money from that scholarship. And yeah, I ended up working on campus as well, pizza place on campus. And that's how I met some people. Jair and Mickey might have seen me around throwing pizza. Yeah, that was good times. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, my sophomore year though, UFC just went up again. And I think I took out $1,000 loan was all it was my first year. Second year was $1,000 loan as well. And then my third year, I didn't need a loan.
You found money, you got these scholarships. And I think for anybody who's looking at having to spend money, like reach out to Martine, reach out to Michaela, talk to Jair, talk to Jennifer. Like, if you find people who have the money, they're going to help you figure out how to get the money. And that's why if you're in high school, it'd be like, how do I find the money? Like even that little tip you gave us, Martine, about, how you're able to get an additional scholarship and how you're able to make this work. And $1,000 loan is, very easy to pay back. And I mean, investing in your education and for what you're all going to get, it's really remarkable. So that's awesome. I find you all so inspiring. And I think that college is so much more accessible than I think people realize.
Funny story about that. My sophomore year, uh, management was pretty bad. They had me like open and close the restaurant sometimes. So I'd make like 4 or 5 extra pizzas at night, and I just give out to some friends at the end of the shift.
That's the way to make friends. That's awesome. Yes, now everybody can be your friend. So Jennifer, now are you still working at the pizza place, Martine?
I got laid off because of COVID. I'm working at Costco now. Pays a lot better.
Oh, okay. So it worked out. I don't know, Michaela, do you get to go to Costco? Do they do, does Costco
Yeah.
like, yeah?
So I work at Costco because I'm a Costco scholar, but I work at the call center. So I work at corporate. Um, yeah, I've met Craig, the CEO of Costco, several times because I'm a Costco scholar. I've met a lot of like the business owners of like products you see in Costco. Probably met like the owner here or there, like at this giant like Costco scholar breakfast. So there are perks to being a Costco scholar.
That's awesome. That's so much fun. I want to learn more about that because that's well, you know, we'll have another conversation about that because that's pretty cool. I was at Costco today. Was it today or yesterday? I like their chicken. You know, the little roasted chickens. It's
Do
like
you
a
also get a
very,
Costco card?
what's that?
Don't you also get a Costco card?
Yeah, I get an executive Costco card.
Yeah, one of my
For life.
roommates has one, so whenever I need to take a Costco trip, I take him with me.
For life, right? Is what you're-
He's a Costco scholar too, so
Nice. That's really interesting. I just want to just make sure when it comes to Gear Up, Martine, Gear Up helping you to navigate this. Was there a time, was there a situation, was there a challenge where you were like, you know, thanks, thanks Caesar or whoever it was who really helped you out?
I recall they had message us. I think I don't remember how far into our freshman year it was, but they messaged our class of 2018 Gear Up students that were at UW for a dinner, and then they told us to meet a specific restaurant. They reserved a room, and so like all UW students that graduated from Top Finish that were Gear Up, we sat there, we had dinner, and they just kind of like gave them a goodie bag, kind of talked about like how it's going so far. I think that was kind of nice just to like reunite, with like the high school Gear Up people, and like seeing everybody else from UW as well that went to the same high school. I think that was just kind of like a little motivation as well.
Is there anything else, Michaela, when it comes to like field trips, Gear Up field trips? I know Jair, you talked about those field trips. Like you really love those Gear Up field trips to help you to tour campuses. Michaela, do you have any memories of that?
Yeah, so I especially love the field trips because like it's a day to like get out of class, but also like I think it made me realize like, oh wow, I should probably come to UW. Like the architecture is so beautiful at UW, like the libraries, they're like beautiful, like inside and out. So I think like for me, it was like, dang, this campus is beautiful. Like I want to come here. I know Gear Up also helped like people from my class with like books, a lot of like book fees, like the first quarter of freshman year. I think there was like miscommunication on my end, because I was like the only one who didn't get it. But like
No.
I know it. I think I think I changed my number and so, like they couldn't like contact me. But I know they helped like a lot of my friends who came to like went to get up from Top Niche, and like they were able to like reimburse them like books and stuff. So like that was really nice of them. I know in high school when I was a senior, Miss Ochoa, she like helped me with my FAFSA. She like walked me through it with my mom. Cause like honestly, like my mom had to fill out FAFSA. I didn't know how to do it. So like I think like it was really like great that like they help parents and like their children like help apply for like FAFSA and WAFSA.
And the WAFSA, I know WAFSA is real important too. Yeah,
um,
you were nodding your head like with the help, like it really helped. Like the FAFSA, is it tricky?
I mean, I'd say now that I've done it plenty of times now, like it's not really tricky. But I mean, even now when I do it, it's just at least for me personally, like when it's like working with government documents in your tax, it's real scary. I'm just like, what if I put something in wrong? What if like something happens? So like it's kind of just it's intimidating and like
Yeah.
it's nice to like, especially where it's like where they'll be like, oh, go to this lane or to this line and this number, and you're just like, if and the number will be blank, and I'm like, what I do or stuff like that, where it's just like there's like real technical terms that like it's kind of scary. And it was the first time doing it. It's just like where they were like, oh yeah, you just have to put here, just put zeros in there, just so like I would have spent way more time doing it like on my own if I had to figure it out.
Yeah, that stuff's intimidating. I think especially with parents sometimes who don't always speak the same language. I think that can be really intimidating and hard, or have not gone through this. So, and you all continue to go through this. So I want to learn more about what it's like to actually get to campus. So you got here, and I know Michaela, you said you got to campus and graduating as a valedictorian, and then going to campus, going to UW, all of a sudden you didn't feel like the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, so my story is different from most. I actually got into because of the Gear Up director, Conan. So it was at the Purple and Gold event. Like I was talking to him. I think someone had told him that I was interested in being like a neurosurgeon, like when I had like really big dreams. And he came up to me, he's like, hey, there's this program called the UW Alva Genome Project. You should apply. And I was like, okay. So like basically me talking to the director of Gear Up got got me like interested in this program. And then when I was like going to apply, I was like, wait, it's closed. He's like, oh, give me a second. So he reached out to the director of this program, and like she opened like the application for me. So I had to get my whole application done in like less than a day. Like I was running around school, like trying to ask like teachers to just like give me like a letter of recommendation. And so I actually got accepted into the program, and it's basically targeted for like um, minority students or like underserved students, and it basically gives them it's like a summer internship. So I was placed in the research lab going into my freshman year. So the summer, so I think I only had 2 weeks after like my high school graduation of like summer break, and then I was put into like a research internship, and it was kind of hardcore. Like I was around like I think 12 other students who are all like running start students. They're all minorities, but like when we had like these mock classes during that internship, so it'd be like in the mornings you had calculus and chemistry, and then you would go off to like your research lab. And when I was in like those calculus and chemistry courses, or I was very intimidated because all these students had came from like more privileged schools. So like they have like IB programs, they had like AP classes, they had like Calc 2, Calc 3 in their high school. And I was like, wait, hold up. My high school only goes up to like calculus, and like chemistry stops your sophomore year. Whereas like these other schools have like organic chemistry. And I was like, whoa. So it was like a whole like new world. That was like the first time I was like, oh, I might not be the smartest kid anymore. um so but that like internship like really like prepared me with like STEM, like the research world. So I have a lot of research under my belt, as well as like those, even though they were mock classes, it really was like, dang, I'm not the smartest one. But it wasn't as bad because we weren't graded or anything, and it
Right.
was some stuff I had covered before. But then once like freshman year, I think it was more winter quarter when I got into Calc 2, something that I was like unfamiliar with. Like imposter syndrome just hit really hard. And it was winter quarter. Winter quarter is usually the worst. I got put with all the star students. I'm pretty sure Jair can attest that those students are hardcore. Like they
I was a star
they're
student.
ruthless.
I barely survived.
Yeah, but a
But
lot of them are like ruthless. Like they want those 4.0s, and UW's on a curve. So like if the whole class does really good, it can like really affect your grade if you're not doing good, which was basically happening to me. I was like, I'm not on the average. I'm not doing good. I also, for some reason, accidentally signed up for a level 499 anthropology class. I did not know what the numbers meant attached to courses were. So I was in like this class, and I was the only freshman. I was in a class with like graduate students. Yeah, I think it was week 5, and the professor was like, okay, we're gonna write a 20-page research paper. And I was like, what? I was like, I cannot do this. I had research going on because I was still doing research on the side. I was in Calc 2, which I was already like not doing good in. I was doing chemistry 152, which is like the harder gen chemistry. And I was like, nope, I can't do it. So I had to drop that class, I think like week 7. So I had to like withdraw. I used like my first hardship withdrawal that quarter.
So you had to leave the class, like you had to drop the class, right?
Yeah.
And did that feel, for someone who does so well and is used to doing well, did you feel like you were failing or giving up, or
Yeah.
was that
I
hard?
told, yeah, it was extremely hard. I really did feel like I was failing like my parents, and then like I was like, oh my gosh, I can't meet my credit cap to like get my financial aid. So like, because if I think the course I dropped, it was a 5 credit class, so it
Wow.
put me at like 10 credits, and so I was like, I was like panicking basically. But it all worked out because you can get lab credit if you do research. And so my PI like signed off a whole bunch of documents and was like, okay, you can get these 2 like lab credits. And like that made me a full-time student by like week 7. So
So your PI, who's a PI?
PIs are principal investigators. They're basically like people in charge of like the lab. So I was in his like research lab doing research that he like did like grant writings for and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you let him know what was going on. And that's
Hmm.
what I'm really trying to get at, is when you were dealing with this crisis where you went from your 15 credits to 10 credits, all of a sudden being a part-time student, losing your financial aid and all the other pieces that were so important. Like, who did you turn to get help so that it turned out to be okay?
I think first, so the director of the internship I did, she's kind of like my mom. Like she's not actually my mom, but I like gave her that term, and like I was like telling her like all this and that, like I was obviously like very upset then because like
Were you
financial aid
crying? Were
is
you
a
like
big,
hysterical?
yeah, not hysterical, but I was crying. I was really upset. I have anxiety, so like my anxiety was like more up there. So I was just like very worried, and like I spoke to her and she told me like, oh, why don't you like you can get like lab credit, because she knew I was still doing research and I was putting like a lot of hours into research like every week. And so she was like, yeah, just tell like your PI and like he'll understand. And like I basically set up a meeting with him and I was like, hey, I know it's late, but like, can I get lab credit? I'm kind of in like a sticky situation. And he was like, yeah, like you do all this work, you should be getting credit. Because if you're doing like a certain amount of hours in lab, you can sign up for like lab credit. And so
That's
I got
awesome.
approval. Yeah.
Yeah. So you probably could have even gotten the credit anyway on top of it. So like
Yeah.
this situation allowed you to see, and for anybody who's in this situation, if you're doing research and you're in this difficult state of limbo between part-time and full-time, that's great stuff. I mean, and that mom, I know she's not your mom, but how did you meet this person who really helped you and protected you?
Well, um, the director of Gear Up, how he like introduced me to the program. She was the director of the program that I got into, and like during the program, she was often like coming to visit like all of her like students in the program and like getting to know us. Like she's like the friendliest woman you could like possibly meet, and she loves helping others, especially like minority students. And like she had like such a great bond with me. Like she's a person like I can actually like go to and speak to about my problems. Like if I have an accomplishment, I'll go tell her like right away. Like she's someone like she's also in administration within UW, so she's helped me like a lot. I got really lucky. So
What's her
yeah,
name?
Lisa Peterson.
So you met Lisa through Conan, the director.
Yeah.
And I know Conan real well. And
Yeah.
he's just a good guy, man.
Yeah, he
He
is.
like he wants you to be successful. And Jennifer, I think you're gonna get a lot of help if you want it. Like if you ask for help. Are you good at asking for help, Jennifer?
Um, I'm not good at asking for help.
No? Why don't you like to ask for help?
Um, I don't know. I'm not sure, but like I guess like the way that I've grown up is kind of like I don't want to be a burden to anyone. So I guess that's also like had a negative impact on me. Like my parents, like seeing my parents struggle, and I just didn't want to make them struggle more or worry them more. So I guess that's also another reason why I struggle to ask for help.
Because asking for help would do what? How would that impact your relationship with your parents or create trouble? I'm trying to just connect the two.
Well, I just don't want to be a burden to someone else.
Yeah. And do you recognize that when you ask for help, you're giving people an opportunity to share something wonderful? And there's so many people who don't see it as a burden, they see it as a gift. I don't know if you see that. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, I do.
And I would say, even just from the people who are here, in our discussion tonight, like, I think Martine and Michaela and Jair, like, I think they would love to help you. It wouldn't be a burden, right? For any of you? No, like, Martine, the Dare to Dream. Tell me what Dare to Dream is.
So it's a program through camp, and usually it takes place like it's a camp, like physical camp, and it brings in like majority of high school students around the valley, like the area, and they spend like a couple weeks at UW, and we get assigned to several different kids from these high schools, like, or even incoming freshmen to school, and then it's just kind of like teaching them how, like, campus works, like, and how they take even a credit. I think they're assigned to classes, and so like we, guide them to classes, and then like we get like alone time with them, and we just kind of share experiences. It's kind of like what we're doing right now, sharing my experience to them, and then they talk about them, and I'm kind of like motivating them if they weren't thinking about college to think about college, and it is a real option because we all come from like the same background, really.
Jair, you're a fourth year student, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to graduate this year?
No, so I did a program that I think you asked it earlier, the STARS program.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I applied and I was accepted into that program, which puts you on a 5th-year track.
I got a couple more questions. I want to know about your most uncomfortable experience. I want to know about the time where you almost gave up, or the time where you really question yourself and your abilities. Jair, was there a time, you seem pretty solid, man, but like, was there something that happened? Was there an event or an incident that just made you question everything while in school?
Ever since school switched to COVID, I mean, that's where it's been for me personally real rough.
Yeah.
Because I can't focus on a computer screen. Like, it's hard for me.
Yeah. So
But
explain to me how you worked through that.
I mean, I'm still working through it. I mean, it's just trying to get through it. At least for me, I found some people since now that I'm in my major, I basically take all my classes. It's kind of for civil. There's like 2 tracks, track 1 and track 2. So I'm taking all my classes with the same track 1 students. So I've kind of like now that I've been through this whole quarter in my major, now I like gotten to know some people. And I guess what's helped me a lot is like getting together like with people. Like right now, since it's online, we just get on like Discord and like let's just work through problems, homework problems together, study together.
I think it's interesting to hear that you've struggled a little bit having it be virtual learning.
I mean, it's
As opposed,
frustrating. It feels you don't learn anything.
yeah. I mean, were your grades slipping? Were you?
I mean, my grades, I feel like they haven't changed too much. I've gotten, I mean, because I feel the same way. Maybe I'm struggling. I feel like everyone struggles the same because the cons- classes are graded on a curve. I guess I've stayed relatively where I'm at, but I just feel personally it's been a lot harder just like to focus, and then you get the feelings of like, and then you get feelings of like where, how I feel with my classes, like where I feel I'm not picking up information, and then I feel like when I'm doing my homeworks and stuff, like I can't, I don't understand it, so it kind of just gets frustrating, like to feel like you're not retaining information, and then when you see other people in the classes who like or get everything, it's like, yeah,
Yeah, that's got to throw you. That's going to be really hard, especially in such a competitive group, and being someone who's used to doing well. So that's great. And you use the group, your group of students, leaning on them really helped you.
yeah. I've had some friends or classmates, friends that we've gotten together, and it's helped a lot. I mean,
Did you admit to them? Did you say to them, "Hey, I'm really struggling"? You know,
I mean, for it started off kind of where we were putting a group project for a class, and that's where I kind of met one of my friends, or like one of the friends, and like so we would work together. And then after like one of our groups for like the homework for that class, I was like, "Hey, you guys are taking these classes too." And like I brought it up, like, "How have you guys done the homework?" They're like, "No, I'm kind of struggling on it," and like we kind of got together to work together, and then it kind of just grew from there. Where they were like, "Hey, I got this buddy who's struggling too," and they would hop in, and we just kind of grouped together.
Yeah. So if you're struggling, you're most likely not the only one. And if
Yeah.
you let other friends know, all of a sudden you get this group, and then your group became so big, you have a Discord where you now all will work through the problems together.
And we have some people, yeah. I mean, but I feel like I also have friends where I have friends who totally get it and they're just like flat coasting. And it's like, I found this group because I felt when I would ask them for help, I felt like they kind of would explain it once or twice. And if you didn't get it on like the first go, they're like, you feel kind of like you're just holding them back or like they want to progress and you're kind of just there.
Right. But this other group helps you to just be imperfect,
I
and to,
mean, yeah,
like, as many times as you need it, they'll give it to you. They'll help you. Yeah. And that's, I think that also speaks to the whole thing of like asking for help. It's like, I think more so than ever, everybody feels, a lot of us feel isolated and alone. And I think that as a first gen student, you feel isolated and alone. But then on top of it, with COVID and all of the other issues that have gone on, it's like asking for help is so important. Jennifer, let's see. Do you have a big struggle, a big challenge, something that you can think of where, you had your most uncomfortable experience?
I would say it was a little bit more recent. A couple of quarters ago when I was trying to get into my majors, when I was switching majors, so it was like my art major switching into business administration. I was trying to meet the prerequisites and I couldn't pass how do you call it, calculus 1, which is a requirement. I couldn't pass it. So I tried the first time, I didn't pass it. The second time, I didn't pass it. And I was very worried because we only have 3 tries.
Mm,
And so math has always been something that was never my strength, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I was very worried because I got into the business school, but it was kind of like you still need to pass this prerequisite to stay in the business school. And so when I got like the the thing that was like, oh, like you didn't pass it, I was like, what am I gonna do? Like I worked so hard to get into the business school, and I was just like in shock. I was like, I was crying. I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, what will people think about me? What what people will think about me? And I don't know. I was very worried because my family has been working so hard. They put so much effort into this. Like, it wasn't just me going through this. It was like all my family, all my friends. It was like all of us working together to get me to where the place I am today. And so I was just very worried about like not um being able to do what I want to do. And that's like my dream is to like have my own business, is to get a degree from UW, the business degree. And so I eventually did pass the math class with help from how do you call it, with my counselor. Since I talked to her, I let her know like what was happening, and then she was like, oh, it's all right, you just need to try your best. You can take this other class to meet the prerequisites for that. And so that really helped me. And I also got help like with the counselors and stuff like that. They're very helpful, and just like calming you down and being like, this is all right, like it's not the worst thing ever, like you can still be very successful and it's all right, you're gonna be okay. And I think that's what I needed to just like breathe and then just like go on with the flow.
yeah. So you failed twice before really getting the help.
Yeah.
Like, and that goes along with, you don't love to ask for help,
Yeah.
but then finally you really needed the help,
Yeah.
and everyone rallied around. That part of also carrying the weight of your family, of your friends, and I think Michaela, you kind of alluded to this before, and I don't know if anybody else feels this. Everybody has sacrificed so much for you that the pressure and the weight of what you do isn't just you, it's your family, it's their sacrifices, it's all of those things culminating. And if you can't do that, you've failed everyone. Would you say that's how it feels? Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
and but the other part is, and maybe Michaela, you can speak to this, that if you do struggle and if you do have these challenges, you're not disappointing anyone, and you're not letting anyone down. All you're doing is just struggling. Michaela, what was your most uncomfortable experience and how did you get through it?
I mean, I already kind of spoke about it, but that quarter
Okay.
was the worst. I think I passed my Calc 2 class with like a 1.7, which is passing in like the math department. So like it was like a big like punch to the gut, you know. I was like, dang, this is like the worst quarter I've had. But I think like even up to like my sophomore year, I was struggling a lot, like compared to everyone else in like my biology classes or like my organic chemistry courses. I was passing with like low 2.0, like a 2.0. So it was like my grades were like 2.0s, 2.5s. You know, like I wasn't getting like 3.0s. I wasn't above the curve. It was like those 2 years was there was like a lot of pressure on me because like I really wanted to do like neurobiology, like get into that major. And like with these grades, you can't get into that major, you know? So I think like my first 2 years was very much like a learning experience. Because like Jennifer, I didn't like to ask for help. I had help with like counselors, advisors and stuff, but like they couldn't really help me with like actual coursework, you know? So like I was struggling to even tell my friends like, "Hey, can you help me? Like I'm struggling in this class," because I had a lot of friends in like the same courses as me. And like they were getting like really good grades. And I was like, ooh, just like how Jair said, like you feel like a burden sometimes when you like have like lower grades or like you're just not understanding. And it wasn't necessarily that I didn't understand the content. It was like okay, I have very bad test anxiety. Like when I was taking exams, for some reason, like everything that I knew just like went away, you know? So I think my first 2 years was very much like a learning curve. And then like COVID happened. So like that was a lot, especially being back home. Um, like my home environment wasn't the best. So like it took like a lot of mental toll on me. But I think it got better once I moved out. So like my third year, I
Yeah.
finally learned how to like navigate the classes. Um, Even though like online learning is the worst thing ever, I cannot imagine how anyone could like have learned all of the content I learned in my biochem class in person. You know, I think once COVID hit, the curves were becoming a lot higher, which was making me feel like I was falling more behind. Um, but I think this year at least I've worked a lot harder. I've tried to actually attend like office hours. I've used a lot of like support. I mean, I've always used like tutoring support here and there, but like I used it a lot this past year. And like I actually like asked my friends for help. So like I saw like a improvement in my grades this year.
I'm curious to hear your family. You mentioned a little bit about your family, and I don't know how much you want to share. I want to really respect your boundaries, but I know there's a lot of people who have lots of challenging family dynamics, and that can be really hard to balance. Can you share a little more about that?
Yeah, I can share like a tad bit. My house, like just in general, being back is like a weird shift because like you go from like Seattle back to like the valley. It's totally different, you know, like just that environment's completely different. And like my household is it's a small house. So having everyone in the house in general was just like hard because everyone was taking classes, someone was doing work in like that corner of the house. So there was that. And then like I have me and my one of my siblings, we don't get along. He has some like issues that he won't get help with, and so like there was like this like problem. There was just like a lot of issues with like arguments, fighting, and just like a whole bunch of stuff. Like I love my family, you know, I love my parents, but like being home was like a toxic culture. Like it was just a toxic environment. There was a lot of negativity in like the household, and it just like it wasn't making things better when I did like Zoom classes, you know? So, yeah, I don't really want to go into much detail. It just wasn't like
Right.
the friendliest environment. And it took like a lot, like a big mental toll on, like, on me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't need to go into it anymore, but I think there's so many people who have, I think it's the norm. I think that that's more common than not where there's family issues. Like there's dynamics. I think being in college and being away is very different, but also being in high school, you probably dealt with some of those dynamics in high school. They're still there. And then knowing that you're not alone with those dynamics. And I imagine they were in high school too, right? Like you had to deal with stuff. It's not like it
Mhm.
magically like appeared when you came back.
Yeah,
Right.
no, the only thing is like it just got progressively
Right.
worse when I left. Yeah.
Yeah. Michaela, I don't know if you can also mention the anxiety, because I know there's so many students who are anxious, and I meet so many students who have panic attacks and just feel the weight of the world. When it comes to anxiety, managing mental health, do you have any advice for anyone with that?
I think just like take it slow. Also, I think in like the Latin community or like culture, mental health, there's like a big stigmatization like around it. So like I know personally for me, it was hard for me to like say like, oh, I actually have like these issues, you know. But I think I think it was my sophomore year. Yeah, my sophomore year. I really took advantage of like the counseling center because like they're there to help you, you know. And I know a lot of different like cultures also have like issues surrounding like mental health because like families don't want to talk about it. So when you're in a setting where like your identity is being questioned and like a whole bunch of different things are like happening, I think it's like a really good resource to use. Also, yeah, literally just take it slow because a lot of things, like even though things can get overwhelming, but like if you take things one step at a time, it really helps. Or at least like for me, I I was already organized, but like I really like live by my planner now, and like for tests, I have to like just remember like to take a deep breath before because I know my freshman and sophomore year, I got like really worked up prior to taking an exam, which didn't help the situation at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also just like preparing. I think a lot of like mentally preparing myself for what was gonna happen.
I have a therapist. I'm a big fan of therapy. And I think that just having someone to talk to who doesn't have the same last name,
Yeah.
because they're not going to judge you and they're going to listen. And just by talking about it, it really helps. So, thanks for that. Does anyone have anything else to add regarding the mental health piece? I
I'm not the best at managing that, so no.
You're not, you're still working on it.
Yeah.
You get stressed out, man.
Oh yeah.
You keep it inside.
Always.
Do you? Yeah. Um, are you open to any advice with that, or, cause
I mean, yeah.
yeah, I can just tell you from experience, when you keep it in so long, it builds and builds and builds, and then one day it just becomes so big, and it can be overwhelming. And uh, just practicing, just finding small ways to just let a little bit of the pressure out, whether it's through, for me, it's exercise, it's journaling, it's talking to a therapist, it's reminding myself that it's always okay and it will be okay. And I think when you're in such a, like, engineering's tough, man, stressful. And I know that star group sounds intense, it sounds so intense. But the thing is, like, you're part of it and you're going to be okay no matter what. Like, you're going to be okay no matter what. And I think that when we recognize we're going to be okay no matter what, it's not as big a deal. And it really isn't as big a deal because you're going to be okay. What's your dream, Jair?
I don't know. I mean, currently my only thought process is just graduating, trying to get a job, stability, I guess.
You're going to do
Back
that,
home,
man.
like
You're-
parents being renters, we moved around a lot, you know.
yeah. You're gonna do all that. Like you're gonna get all that, like all of it. You know, and even if your grades are a little less and you're not, oh, like you're amazing. So I think just like recognizing like it's going to be okay is really helpful, and then having just someone to talk to, and talking about it really helps. Would you agree with that, Michaela?
Oh yeah. I know like I held it in for a long time and like I would have like occasional like mental breakdowns here or there. Um, I think talking it out is probably like the best thing, you know, and it's a lot of like self-reflecting too on like how to change like little things. I know like I also like exercise now. Running has relieved a lot of my anxiety, not necessarily, but like it helps me feel a lot better when something's very stressful.
Even like meditation and like the exercise stuff. I don't even like exercising that much, but I do it because it just helps my mental health. You know, it's like moving around and everything's a little bit better. Like today I had a therapy appointment, and I see my therapist every 3 weeks. And I know you guys get like, I imagine you probably get free therapy through CAPS, through this like through the mental health services. And it's like even just talking to someone, like I talk and exercise, and it helps. I didn't, and like I'm much older now. I didn't get therapy for a long time, and I struggled with perfection and thinking I'm good enough and always trying to be recognized. And so like if I could talk to younger me, I'd be like, dude, just like talk to someone. Even if you think you got it together, it's such a relief. It's a beautiful thing. So and just being in your corner and having this is wonderful. So anyway, man, thanks for even offering that, Jair. I'm sure even you saying that, like that it gets heavy, is such a beautiful thing to share, because like you're kicking ass in 100 different ways. Martine, what was your most uncomfortable experience, and how do you get through that, man?
I think that goes back to my relationship I started in high school. So I started a relationship early, like senior year of high school. It was good at the beginning, but it just grew bad towards the end. And I wanted to end it before starting college, but I didn't know how to end it, and so we just kept together. And I think I mentioned my uh, draft that I did marching band in high school, so I wanted to do marching band in college. And I told my partner about it, and she was like 100% against it. She's like, "You do it, we're breaking up," basically. And so then I was like, "Damn, like, I shouldn't be doing that then. Like, I won't do marching band." And so then she ended up like dictating a lot of what I would do, even though it was like a long distance. Like I'd be over in Seattle, she'd be in Toppenish, and she like tell me like, "Oh, don't do this, or you should come down more often," and so on. And so that was like my struggle, kind of like I was in a relationship I didn't want to be in, and I didn't know how to handle it. And now I look back and I was like, anyone who was like telling me I shouldn't be doing something that like I wanted to do shouldn't have been in my life in the first place. And it took me a while and like talking with friends and bros from my fraternity to like, hey, like tell me like, hey, like she's not worth like being in your life and so on. And I think that's like the biggest regret is like now with COVID as well. I don't think I'll get the opportunity to be part of the marching band at UW, but it's just a learning experience.
That's a hard thing. Thanks for sharing that, because there's so many people. I don't think there's a lot of men who talk about that as well. Have you dated since then?
No, I haven't dated since then, and I'm kind of like very conservative about it, I guess. But yeah.
I can send you. I have a dating book too. I do, because I mean, dating's hard, man. No one talks about, like, we didn't even talk about like dating and relationships, and you're in a fraternity, and you're meeting lots of people, but um there's no book on dating. It's like, how do you work through that? Like you said, if somebody doesn't support you, that's not the person that you should be with.
Yeah, pretty much. If you for like have doubts that you even consider like staying, if you have like bad feelings or any type of a hatred towards a person that's already like that you're dating, pretty much it's not gonna end up lasting because if you already have like that built up rage, so might as well end like things sooner than later and not letting
Right.
it drag out.
Yeah, and I think just to add on that, the best relationships are two people who can live independent lives and be happy apart. Being happy apart doesn't mean that you shouldn't be together. It just means you know how to be happy. and just makes the relationship better. That's something that took me a long time to realize. The distance part, being far away from home. I know you guys have mentioned this a little bit. For those of you who are from Toppenish, like what's your advice for going far away from home? Like, how do you leave family? How can you manage that? Because I think a lot of people are really intimidated and scared by the distance. Can you just offer some advice to those students who want to have this experience but are afraid to do it?
I know when I got into my internship, I was actually really excited to leave. It was like a new journey, you know, like a new chapter of my life. I don't really have like a tight knit family, so like I wasn't like worried that I'd miss people because I know like personally, like I wasn't really missing anyone besides like my parents, especially my mom, because like my mom like babied me. Basically like I'd be like, Mom, can you make an appointment for me? Like, you know, like even like freshman and sophomore year of college, like I was still reaching out to my mom to like have her like do things for me, even though I should have probably like taken responsibility for it. But I think for me, the transition was a lot easier because of my internship. I know if I didn't have that internship, that like I probably would have been a lot homesick. I mean, I still am. The aspects of like me being homesick are more like my culture's food, and like you don't get the same things in Seattle that you do in like the valley, because like the valley there's like Red Bull drinks, you know, like sometimes I just want a Red Bull drink over here, but I can't get it because nobody sells them here. And like there's just like certain things like Mexican food. I can't get good Mexican food in Seattle. You know, like you can't get that in Seattle, but you can totally get it back in the valley, you know. Um yeah, I think for me it was just a lot easier than like most. But that's cuz I was ready to leave.
Martine, what about you? I know you had a hard time, man, that 2.0 academic probation, or it was academic probation.
It was a warning.
I'm sorry. So with that
Yeah.
2.0, the academic warning, like being far away, you almost didn't make it. Like, how did the distance, how were you able to do it? And how did the distance play into this?
I think what really helped me was having my sister there. She was a senior at the time, and so like she was already out, like, almost out the door, and she was telling me about her struggles as well, and like just knowing that she struggled too, like didn't drop my spirits too low. And again, the fraternity, having bros that like were about to get graduate as well, telling me like they were also like failed the class, and they also had to like write an appeal to like stay in college, and like they were legit just getting ready, like their capstones, getting ready to graduate. One of them was from the Foster School of Business, and I was like, you know, if this guy struggled his first year and now he's going to graduate soon, like I can make it through these struggles as well.
Yeah.
And so that's what just really helped me.
What about you, Jair? The distance, was it hard for you?
I mean, distance like from leaving home. I mean, I was ready to like I felt prepared to leave like to UW. I wasn't scared. I mean, I know my dad, like he was more protective of my mom. So he was definitely the one that was like, I mean, like when I had to leave, he was the one that kept calling and stuff. But at the same time, he's really like sort of, what's it, uh, like, I don't know, it's kind of petty almost. Where like, so like the whole time, like leading up to when I was leaving, he was like, oh, I'm gonna throw a party when we leave. I'm so glad you're leaving and stuff. Like, just like trying to get at me. So that took, I mean, so for me, like I remember my freshman year was kind of like when he let, like, he's like, oh, watch, you think you don't need me now, but once you leave, you're gonna be calling me that every day. So like, I didn't call him back the whole time until he called me. He's like, what you do, forget about us? I'm like, no, I mean, just proving a point.
So your dad was missing you the most.
Yeah, but I mean, but I was ready for like, but I, like being at UW, definitely like you get homesick. Like I mean, like how Nikki was saying with the missing foods. I mean, missing my parents too. Like that's like the only people really like family wise that where I was close to was my parents. Because like me growing up, I was born in Detroit, and then we moved like I mean, so that's on the other side of the country, and then we moved around a lot. I've lived in like California and Washington, Nevada, so moved around. So I was never really close to like have many other close people aside from like just my parents and my little brothers.
Jennifer, what about you? Dealing with distance, homesickness, any of that?
Um, well, I do also miss the food because there's a large majority of Latinos where I live. But I'm very attached to my parents since it's just like us, a family of four. It's like my older brother, me, and my parents. So I kind of did miss them a little bit, but I think they missed me more. And since they missed me more, it kind of like made me miss them when they called, especially with my dad, because me and my dad are very close. And so like I could sometimes like hear him like in the phone, like holding back his tears that he missed me or something. Or my parents are like, oh, like that they missed me. They're like, oh, my child, my little girl, since I'm the only girl. And so they're like, "Oh, I miss you." And then I don't know. There's just like sometimes even now I'm just like, "Oh, like I really miss them sometimes." Like there's just like sometimes like some things you like think about and then they're like you're like, "I wonder what they're doing. I wonder how they're doing." And things like that.
And how do you get through it?
Well, I guess it helps that I have my roommates and they're both Latinas also, and so like it helps me just like bond with them more, and we just like talk to each other, so it makes me feel a little bit less lonely.
Did you seek them out, or was it just magic that you ended up with them?
Well, they were actually friends from high school,
Nice.
so we decided to like move in together.
I usually discourage people, but I think when you're transferring, it's a little different because because if you live with people, you could sometimes end up hating them
Yeah.
because living is weird. Michaela's like, right. When you live with friends, it can be dangerous. But that's a whole other thing. Okay, I got two more things. I wanted to make sure the EEI program that I think was the Gear Up program, the early engineering program. Is that what you were talking about, Jair, with the robotics and the STEM?
Early engineering program. I think I remember that one.
Or the
That's what
EEI,
I think I
or
did.
the Engineering Institute. Oh, that's
Yeah, I
what you're
think
talking about. The Engineering Institute. That's where you did all the robotics, right?
well, I did robotics. So it was in our high school. Like we
Okay.
had a competition, like a team. But Gira brought like funding for the team. It was like a called Vex Robotics. So there was like an already, there's like a competition going on, and we just created like they funded us to get parts because it's all like kind of like Lego kits, but they're all metal, and I mean like with screws and everything. So that's why like how we competed. It's like there was certain parameters and you bought the kits through them. Like you can only use Vex motors. They're like metal pieces, and like you built the frame, you built the robot within parameters to like compete for that year's competition.
Cool. So
And like
Gear Up
Europe,
helped
but
you.
Europe would like give us funding, and some of the best funding they gave us was like our eighth grade year, freshman year. We would qualify for the world championships. For those years, it was in Anaheim, California, and they were able to fund like they funded the hotel, they funded the flight, they funded everything basically to go out there, and we'd get like $80 a day for food, and I mean, I just wouldn't eat, and I just pocket the cash. I'd eat like one meal a day, but I mean, and then like was it I don't think we fundraised. I can't remember if we fundraised the first trip. They also covered it, but we got to go to Disneyland. To, like Disney, we got to do a bunch of stuff while in Anaheim while we were
Mhm.
competing. And like so, and like Gear Up, I mean, helped with a lot of it because I feel, all right, if it wasn't for them funding like the hotel, like basically all the travel fees, like we wouldn't have been able to like gone out probably on all the like trips. That we spent more time having fun than we did competing. I feel like.
Thanks for sharing that. Was there anything else with the Gear Up piece that you can remember that added some, helped you out or had great
Gear Up for
experiences?
the robotics.
Is with anything, I think we talked. I think we did a good job covering it, but that was helpful.
Okay.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay, did anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, like the personal statement, like when you're doing a personal statement and applying to a university, like just like speak from the heart and like just let like the person reading it read about you, because the personal statement is basically what helped me get into UW. So I would say just like put everything that you want the person to know or want the school to know about you. So just like describe yourself and what your dreams, your true dreams and pursuits are into that personal statement.
What did you share that you feel really helped you to get in?
Well, I said that I wanted to do the bakery and that I was like, I already like started doing baking and stuff like that. So I think that really helped me to be a little bit more competitive within the business school, even though my grades weren't the best. It helped me get into the business school.
That's awesome. That's terrific. Michaela, what's your dream?
I don't know exactly yet, but I know I'm gonna go into like pharmaceutics later on in life. Probably either like research in pharmaceutics or become like a PI for a lab or become a professor, like a graduate professor. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but I know I want to go into like the study of like medicine and maybe like drug development one day.
Ooh, you can cure something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. And then Martine, did you have a dream?
Yeah, I wish to become a lawyer one day. And just something I say is like my sister's in her third year of pharmacy school, the oldest one. And just a running joke at town of family is like I can't stay behind, so I also got to go to law school.
Okay,
And my goal is to eventually become a prosecutor. That's my goal.
I
that's
know,
awesome.
I know a lot a lawyer do if you don't, if you wanna, if you ever wanna, get in contact. He didn't do. He's not a what's it prosecuting. He's more the business side of it. But so from my fraternity, but I mean, he definitely he loves people who like want to go into law school. So like he likes talking to people. So if you actually, I could reach out for him. He probably like to talk if you ever want to. He would be a good
Yeah.
resource.
I love when people share their dreams and then someone else is like, I know someone who's living that dream or living part of that dream. And it's just another thing when I'm talking to middle school students and asking their dream, people are like, oh, they'll share their dreams. But then as we get to high school and get to college, people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to share my dream. But that piece of when you share it, other people are like, oh my gosh, I want to help you with that. And I think that if there's anyone who I know through my LinkedIn, you can check out my LinkedIn, check out my Facebook, check out my social media. And if there's anyone I know who you want me to introduce you to, I'll be happy to do that. Like I'm so happy to do that. Okay. So just know like and if there's anyone watching this and you see this and you're like, hey Harlan, I have a question about what you do, I'm happy to do that too. We're gonna wrap this up. This is a very quick exercise. So you're gonna go back in time. Martine, Jair, Jennifer, Kayla, you're going to go back to high school. You're going to see high school you. You're going to see freshman you, right? You see freshman you walking down the hall, and somehow you're in a time machine. And you see you the way you look right now, you know, and you're like, hey, psst, come here, hey, Martine, I got to tell you something. And it's future you, right? Talking to high school you. What would you tell you, Martine, that would have helped you to just navigate what was in front of you?
I think honestly, I just have to go back to the whole dating scene. I think that was had me not been dating and having so many restrictions through her, I think it would have been a lot easier for me to be in school, wouldn't have come back home so much, stayed more focused.
And I'm thinking now with those grades and the struggles you had, I'm sure that was tied to the relationship piece too, right? Like you were dealing with all those emotions, which was pulling you from school, right? Yeah, there's a lot going on. Jair, if you can go back in time and see you, freshman Jair, walking through the halls, what would you tell you?
Even though stuff's easy, I mean, because I at least be in high school, I stopped to learn to study because I'm still struggling. I still don't know how to study. I didn't know a single thing about studying when I walked into the.
So learn how to study, man. You're doing
Yeah,
great, but those study skills, you got to learn that, right? And you're still telling you're like current Jair is like you got to learn the study skills. Jennifer, what would you tell you if you can go back in time?
I would say to don't underestimate yourself.
Michaela, what would you tell you if you could give freshman in high school you advice?
Mentorship is like a very important tool to have. I feel like I've done various mentorship roles. I've been a mentee. My mentors have had mentors, and their mentors have had mentors. Like, I think mentorship is very important. That's how you can get connections. That's how you can talk to someone if you need it. So, yeah.
Reach out to those people and ask for help, and because they want to help you. I think that's beautiful. And clearly you're someone who wants to help other people because when you're a mentor and you've been a mentee, you love to do that. And all of you have been so generous to be here. I'm so lucky that we could spend this time together. If there's anybody who's watching this, Martine, Michaela, Jennifer, Jair, they're all here for you in your corner, so you can reach out to them. And I'm here as well. So I want to thank all my panelists, all students at the University of Washington, all Gear Up grads from high school, from Toppenish, from Mount Vernon. And I'm Harlan Cohn. I'm the host of Before College TV, and I'm so grateful I had the chance to visit with everyone. I look forward to continuing this conversation, and thank you all for being here. Grateful to be in your corner. Thanks, everyone.